on, everybody? It's Buddy, it's pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check. We've got a couple different things to talk about today. I guess NXTNA podcast coming into your ear holes, and that is Jake fucking DeMarco. What's going on, buddy?
I want your soul.
Jesus
Christ. That's for next week.
That's for next week.
Damn it, I messed up already. Fuck.
We're not talking about the fact that I'm going to see the Chamber in the Dome with The Rock and CM Punk and Cody Rhodes and Trish fucking Stratus, and I'm going to be all over that dome. Anyway,
I said it to you earlier, with you being there, obviously I'm going to be live, so I'm very happy to have a man on the inside. We're going to get some great footage from you, some videos. No pause there. Anytime I can get you to be the man on the inside, I'm happy. So I am looking forward to
put me in a tight spot.
Having you, that's how I love it. The tighter, the better. And talking about that position with you on top at the Chamber, you figure you got tickets because it's Toronto, it's a Dome, it's WWE, they're hot, you got to go. And this is turning into like the show.
It is.
It really has. I'm so excited for you because it has become larger than just the Chambers, and usually obviously those are always the focal points, but there's so much more at stake and at play here. The only thing that I'm somewhat upset with, reining back to our topic, is how they handled Roxanne's call-up or lack thereof. I figured with her, like, it was cool to see her in the Rumble. She did an excellent job being the Iron Woman there, and she made a name for herself, but they really didn't exemplify as to why she's so great in NXT, and things are still wrapping up there. So we've seen them do this before with other talent.
I think they did in the sense of they did a video package on her last week. They did a video package on her this week as well.
Yeah.
They have had her interact with the main roster before, and they built in the story of she was the Iron Woman of this year's Royal Rumble, so she was rewarded with a qualifying match into the Chamber.
Yes.
And past that, I mean, we're going to be talking about a lot of NXT in a second, but past that, let it be, for those people that don't know who she is, this is Roxanne, she's awesome. If you don't believe us, just watch.
Yeah.
I think it's the perfect, if it's somebody that hasn't seen her before, don't hand them everything. Let them experience her as new, because there is a value to that. And the people that know what she can do, it can be excited because they know what she can do.
I guess it just felt kind of anticlimactic in a way, but I totally see what you're saying.
She's in, and she had her I guess debut. They haven't actually made it official yet. And I mean, if she doesn't win the Chamber, then she can still say technically, no, nobody ever said I was called up to the main roster.
And when we do the Chamber preview next week, obviously, you and I have so many angles to discuss. With the men's, there's a lot, but the women's alone has story on top of story.
A lot of controversy because there's silly people out there that think WWE can't book a women's division. But pause. Lots of things happening both inside and outside Elimination Chamber. You want to hear what we think about that? You got to tune in next week. This week it's all about the amalgamation of NXT and TNA leading into NXT Live in Cincinnati next week in the Andrew J. Brady Center in Cincinnati. I can't think of anybody else that's done a show there.
I can't recall either. Trying to think
back. My memory's pretty muddy.
Yeah, some people are incredible. You know, that's why Tony Khan, he has kind of that eidetic memory where he can go ahead and be like, oh, this is this happened here. I recall that.
I can't remember anybody worthy of note to say that has.
I
been
got
there
quizzed.
Recently.
I was being the representative of my old show and going around at Mania time trying to garner some attention for us, and I did a trivia show on this guy's podcast, and I embarrassed the hell out of myself. Like, I knew the answers, but my anxiety at that point especially was so bad that being under the slightest bit of pressure to hey, what was I couldn't even remember Rumble winners or easy things. I embarrassed myself and looked like the worst of fake fans. But
I can't do the history stuff. I can remember stuff happening. If you tell me, especially if you pull up somebody like a CM Punk or a Jeff Hardy, somebody that I'm super invested in, I can tell you what I felt like when that happened. But don't ask me what pay-per-view it happened on. Don't ask me what happened, but I'll tell you how I felt. Yeah, exactly. I'm the opposite. For those, we reference What Culture quite a bit, and on there's Michael Hamflett, who is known as the Wrestling Encyclopedia. I can't pull that stuff off to save my life. The people that can sit there and pull off, like, in 2001, WrestleMania was this, and the undercard was this, and the dark match was this, and they had bologna sandwiches for lunch. I'm kind of jealous of those people, but also I think you're sort of slightly missing the point if you're getting that granular and not talking about the feel of it. I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Don't know much about the Brady Center. Can't think of anybody else that's possibly played there. But I will say, cool to know that coming up, they will be doing the theater at Madison Square Garden. I think we touched on this before, but
we did mention it.
It's really cool, and we do have later on, before we get into the Cincinnati show, we will be talking about one match that's happening there. So spoiler warning, but it's kind of obvious based on.
I think everyone's going to be. Yeah, I wouldn't even really call it a spoiler, but
yeah,
we'll get there.
Technically, the events that lead up to this match actually being made official haven't happened yet. So I'm being fair for the people that are sticklers on spoilers.
Absolutely, and staying under the guise of we're focused on NXT and TNA this week, and how one really played so well into the other.
Yeah.
That they became almost sort of like interchangeable of the two, but not to a point where you forgot what or who you were watching. And that's kind of the thing that I want to really point out here, is that they are playing to each other's strengths. Mm-hmm. NXT didn't go over there, grab all their belts, make the Cora Jade the women's champ immediately, and then never defended it again. We're getting story. People are going to NXT just as much as people are going to TNA. And seeing the backstage camaraderie, like I was watching, there's a behind the scenes channel on YouTube that it just combines everybody's snaps of the week, all their TikToks, things like that.
Do you know? Okay, you hit on something here, and I don't know whether I sent this to you or not, but I thought it was awesome. It was a shot from TNA by Mackenzie Mitchell, who just became their new ring announcer. Jade Chung leaving when her husband Josh Alexander left, and all that kind of thing. And we thought, who was the new voice of TNA going to be? And it was Mackenzie Mitchell, who's awesome, who's also married to Vic Joseph.
Yeah, and there's bring your husband to work day, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was okay. I did send it to you, but the whole idea, she takes a picture of her and Vic Joseph, who's from the other company, and that would be unheard of, ages ago, and is able to make a simple like take your husband to work day joke, and I'm sure she'll be backstage at maybe in Cincinnati. We don't really know, because there's going to be a lot of TNA talent there.
Especially considering what you're saying too, because having different talents at one point in time was hard enough to manage and actually have people accept, but now you're having announcers share the stage, the limelight. There really is a lot to be had here that could be really I don't want to understate it.
I'm very careful about how I tiptoe around the Vince thing, because some of my opinions of the Vince thing aren't very popular, but it is the Vince era.
But you also use logic, and that's what people are afraid of.
Yeah, people are really afraid
You can
of
say
logic.
This is a bad person, but created good things.
And this is the opposite. Like, my thing is, like, I wasn't there. I don't know if he's a bad guy, but he did bad WWE things. And the idea that Vic Joseph and Mackenzie Mitchell, wouldn't be able to do that as a couple that we all know about is a very Vince era concern. Now,
Absolutely.
The other side of the coin that I will notice, and I wasn't going to bring up AEW, but why the fuck not? There is a selfie going around with Rhea Ripley, her now husband Buddy Matthews, and their friend,
on a crutch,
and their friend Will Ospreay.
Yes,
they had to put a smiley face over Will Ospreay's picture to cover up the fact that he was in the picture. Like, what the fuck is that?
That was very baffling.
Do you need any more? Do you need any more evidence that TK is the new Vince?
And here's the thing, we've seen him eventually give some of the releases, but he still has Phoenix. And I wanted to bring this up to you because I feel like it makes a very big statement right now. You see NXT, TNA working so well together and having this amalgamation of two brands become one while still retaining their own identity.
Yes.
It's incredible. But you're seeing them bolster each other. Like you said, that rising tide raises all ships. Well, that's exactly what we're getting here. And we're seeing it basically come more and more. So what I was originally saying, we saw the TikToks and all the funny, I saw behind the scene moments of Zarya and Sol Ruka doing their, whole little like fun day together. And
I love them as a
just
tag
tell.
team.
Yeah,
I love them as a tag team.
They're perfect together because of how similarly different they are. Like they complement each other's styles.
The fact that like they do mostly Zarya's entrance, but like Sol Ruka has made herself fit into it. They didn't do like a Miz show.
No, she doesn't feel like an afterthought at all.
No.
And it would be a shame not to use Zarya's badass entrance. Not that Sol Ruka doesn't have an entrance, but it's nothing spectacular. It's just her coming out there. Zarya's got a lot of production behind her. I see pyro and big things for other live shows with her. So it's cool to kind of have
the day she comes up to the main roster and gets to have a Mania entrance, it's going to be insane.
And they're very big on all the pyro lately, if you've noticed. I mean, just The Rock making a quick announcement about the next Mania, I think they blew up all of Tony's budget for getting a ring in Australia.
But you got to remember as well, to be fair, to have an open concept of everything that's going on. They're also performing in big enough buildings to do that much pyro.
Yes, absolutely. And you can film not just on the hard cam side, which is really effective nature. But the one thing I do want to come down...
I don't know whatever happened to Edge after he left WWE, but do you remember how he used to do his entrance to both sides of the stage? It would be really nice for him to come out and be able to do that entrance where he goes from one side of the stage to the other. I really miss Edge. I don't know what happened to him.
I don't know either, but I will say this. I was very moved by the audience kind of giving him his flowers at Grand Slam. Them all singing.
I'll stop being an asshole. That was pretty cool.
That was touching. It reminded me a lot of the Backlash moment with AJ, how he really finally got his chance to be, hey, give him his praise, give him his credit as far as WWE. Yeah. The crowd made the building.
Mathematically, they did kind of achieve something in Australia when they managed to fit that many big egos in that tiny a ring.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, I'm done. Moratorium and all that.
Hold on, because my main point here was the issue that I had with all of it simply comes down to the fact of, we saw it on TV the other day. We've got an attack going down in the ring, so Thunder Rosa comes out and she's going to confront Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford.
Yep.
And it just turns into a total disaster. So the girls no-sell her chair attack multiple times. She goes to swing it and stops right before them.
Well, this is the thing. I don't think, like you say, they no-sell the attack. The attack doesn't happen. Like I think they
were. I think they're not having fear of the babyface running in with a chair. That the attack couldn't happen, and she was like, she should have just kept swinging, and if they didn't get out of the way, that's your fault.
It was one of those, like, it was supposed to be like a near miss because they run away. And it's like, okay, they didn't run away. They're still stood there in the ring, but she's swinging away because it was supposed to be a near miss and not a hit.
Exactly.
And I feel bad. I feel bad because I really enjoy Thunder Rosa as a performer.
So what it comes down to is apparently the bigger story that F4W is saying is that it comes down to production meetings. They don't have production meetings where they go over everything that's going on for the night. And I guess the heels got told one thing and Thunder Rosa got told another.
And TK has doubled down on the fact that we're not changing this. We don't need production meetings.
Yes.
Well,
so he
clearly
said
you
no,
do.
And he refuses it outright. He said, why the fuck don't we have them? Because we don't need them. And... I mean, I guess if that's your attitude, sure, but what you're producing is not backing that up. And then you see, obviously, too, people are saying, well, it could have just been this bad history with Thunder Rosa. That could be it, too. These girls could have no-sold her intentionally. But they also could have gone ahead and just been told, hey, act defiant, act strong. And then the other ones were like, oh, no, you're going to run in. And the whole thing was weird. No one knew what to do next. No one knew how to progress forward.
Nope.
It was just a mess, a total mess, and it also illustrates a very poor light on the locker room because we had Britt Baker basically being let go not that long ago. I mean, she's still there, but we're not going to see her perform on TV anymore, so she got let go like Ricky Starks.
She's going to be held hostage behind locked doors.
Yeah, she's going to be
Ray Phoenix was, the same way as
persona
Ricky Starks
non grata.
was. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Precisely. And
you know the thing is, it leads to the, we get accused of, everybody's got a default setting, and they all say the same thing, well, they'd look better in WWE. Well, guess what? You put Thunder Rosa on a WWE stage, she's going to kick ass.
Look at how they handled Penta's booking and handling him like a star since day one. He's more over now than he's ever been in the history of his career. They're outselling masks.
But Jake, they buried him. They put him on main event.
Oh, I know. How dare they? This way he was able to wrestle longer. You know what I mean? Like, they had reasons for these things, as you said, and it is baffling when you see people say, like, oh, well, what about... I'm sorry. This whole situation, they took down the video on YouTube, so clearly they're embarrassed.
Yep.
It just
all
makes
ridiculous.
it makes them look terrible. It makes them look foolish and short-sighted and unable to have any type of control over your talent. And if they did act, in defiance because they were told to, that's probably worse than them just having an issue with Thunder Rosa on live TV, because that means you have conflicting voices in the back booking things differently. So while we see NXT and WWE are far from perfect, but
no, and this is the number one criticism I get. It's like, well, if you criticize anybody else, well, WWE's done this and this. Okay, cool. I'll tell you 5 more things they fucked up on, and they're still winning.
My main point here, exactly, they are still winning, to tighten it all back in, is that we're really finally starting to see, even when we had kind of a developmental match between Jada Parker and Petrovic and Kalani, it was like, it was still very good. It wasn't a amazing match. It had a lot of like, okay, you do a spot, then I do a spot type thing, and they're still learning and growing and wrestling in front of fans. But it doesn't.
I would rather, because we have to walk the line of, is NXT developmental or not? Well, it's both, right?
It is both.
I would rather
it's becoming less developmental. Is my point. We're going to have Evolve and these other things coming up. So my final point here is that I'm happy to see NXT really taking its time to become its own brand.
Yeah.
But in a way where it doesn't like.
But even when we have, and I'm going to stick to this as a defense, so people are going to get sick of me. Even when NXT has something else under it as the true developmental, it's still going to be the middle step.
Exactly.
It's not.
You're not going to be fully ready for the main roster.
Is it a third brand? Yes. Is it an awesome third brand? Yes. But it is still a mid step to the actual main roster. So with that being said, with the triple
threat, it's the IC title
of brands. Yeah, of course. And the IC, a lot of people like the IC title more.
Yeah.
But my point being, with the match that you just said, the number one contenders, I don't actually have that on my notes, so I'm glad you brought it up. Did they lay out a match that was super simple, basics like Wrestling 101? Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I wouldn't even say that, because like they had some of the 101 moveset where it was like, all right, drop down, toe hold, monkey flip, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. With a little bit of extra flair. Yeah.
Exactly. So
my point is, if the accusation is, it's NXT and they put together a super simple match, I would rather them go out there and do a super simple match and kill it than try to do, 20,000 ballerina flips and somebody goes to Australia and breaks their ankle. I'm just saying.
Because of a bad ring, yeah.
But, no, so what I want to do, I'm bringing this all under one umbrella. We are going to talk about NXT in Cincinnati next week. There's a couple things that happened on NXT. There's quite a bit that happened on TNA because they were live this week. Want to go through a couple bullet points with you that are probably bigger news stories.
I'm just happy to see it all be in a place where now it really feels like, hey, NXT is firing again on all cylinders, and they're not just in this developmental hold like they were back at the 2.0 launch.
I was saying this week on another, I think I was talking to somebody in the chat over on the Wrestling for Life guys stream. Go shout out to those guys. Those guys are awesome as well. With the deal between NXT and TNA being more formalized, yes, they are still two different companies. They maintain their identities and all that kind of thing. But it does have sort of a downplayed Raw and SmackDown feel to it between the two of them. Like, certainly. They are their own separate things, and there's crossover, and the crossover isn't exactly a surprise anymore. Like, Cody Rhodes can show up on Raw this week, and nobody would really bat an eye. It would be like, oh, here's SmackDown's Cody Rhodes, and da-da-da-da. Yeah. It's become that common that even though, yes, they are technically separate companies, like, NXT and TNA kind of have that Raw and SmackDown feel now of being equal and opposite to each other. Because TNA's got bigger crowds weekly than NXT does. NXT feels slightly bigger because it's part of the big evil WWE machine, and I think they're making both of those sets of differences work for them, which is exemplified by the first point that I was going to bring up. How did we open up NXT? And I'm not going to go through the whole show, guys. This is not going to be a full review of the show. You're not going to hear me ramble for that long. But they opened up with Moose wanting to I just ruined the whole fucking thing there. With Obafemi wanting to deal with the four guys that attacked, obviously, that debuted at Vengeance Day that we still don't have a name for, the guys in the masks and whatever. And instead,
the Shield 2.0.
Yeah, or Retribution
Or
3.0.
we can call them the Sword for now.
Oh, dear. But yeah, I've already ruined it because, I tripped over my mouth while I was trying to make a sentence.
Well, you didn't,
but he was
though, because, like you said...
interrupted by NXT's Moose, which is a match that basically everybody said as soon as TNA and NXT started working together, well, yeah, we're going to see Oba and Moose fight at some point. Now the fact that Oba's the NXT champion, Moose is not their world champion. He's their X Division champion, but still
yes.
champion.
You said from
champion.
NXT, you meant from TNA. I knew what you meant, but yes.
Yeah.
And here's the thing with Moose being part of the system.
Just keep helping me put sentences together.
I got you
that's
with
what
math and any type of language, my friend. And
but
what
I like
really
that this
got
wasn't
me over. Yeah, go ahead.
It wasn't
like
an
that.
attack, and it wasn't like, oh,
Yes.
I snuck in from the back, or it wasn't because, oh, I waited until you were dealing with somebody else to like sort of interject. It's like, Oba's right there, I'm right here. Neither one of these guys, and this is why I said, I have to say it once again, I hate the system. I like the individuals in the system, but as a group, the system
and
doesn't
they're
work.
all former WWE guys too.
Are they?
You know, Dango, Brian
Eddie,
Myers is.
Eddie Edwards isn't.
Eddie isn't, but I'm saying, most of them I should
Alicia
say.
Edwards isn't. Three-fifths of the group is.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is, like, in what world does Moose need backup?
He doesn't, and that's why I loved it, because he just
didn't
came
come
out
out
and he
with the
said, you
system,
can't rule over me. And one thing that really pissed me off, and I kind of wanted to bring it up to you just because this will ruffle your feathers, people were like, oh, I thought there was 100%, zero tolerance rule for anyone that's had any type of, domestic or any type of abuse claim or arrest for that nature. And it's like, first off, the issue with Moose happened well over a decade ago. And secondly, he wasn't convicted. It was thrown out, and it was kind of proven like, hey, the woman that he was with at the time lied, and basically he was attacked, and she was trying to get him
Well, the thing is,
locked up.
as well, is people are, like, the second stick they want to beat him with is that he's friends with Tessa Blanchard.
Yeah.
To which I say, get over it. To which I say, I don't know if you've gotten the memo, but cancel culture has been canceled.
It just baffles me. Like, that's the first thing people have to come out with. Why? Because you're not happy that NXT and TNA are working together?
No, what's happened is, and I'm sorry to keep beating this drum, TNA became the villain as soon as they decided to work with WWE, and as soon as Scott
The villain to who? AEW?
Well, to anybody that's not a WWE fan. And, well, they became the villain because they're working with WWE now, and they became the villain because Scott D'Amore came out and was honest about how bad the working arrangement was between them and AEW. Like, yeah. I'm not taking it, and I have to specify this.
Yeah, this is not a jab.
I'm not taking digs at Kenny Omega. Kenny, like, you and I have talked on here a lot about how Kenny didn't used to be my guy. Kenny's kind of my guy now. He's earned a lot of my respect. The belt collector thing, I mean, it's not quite as cringe as what Sasha's doing now, but the belt collector thing was kind of cringe, and in that it
was the way it was handled. Yeah, it was COVID times too.
They used the TNA title as props, or because there was the two different titles, the old school TNA title and the new school Impact, as it was at the time, title. But like.
They definitely got some...
If they weren't working with WWE right now, people would not give a shit about Moose's history. They wouldn't have looked into Moose's history.
Exactly my point. Like, it's so disingenuous that it feels disgusting.
But I love that there was no... sorry, I really do want to get back to the positive of this, because the cancel culture shit just pisses me off. There's zero dressing to this, either. There's no story. There's no... who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. There's no Moose coming out with backup. There's no, Santino and Ava coming, oh, come on, guys, break it up, break it up. It's just two
I'm going to stronger
dudes.
than you, and I'm going to, you can't topple me. There's no way I'm going to let you control
And what was it? They
shared
like 5 words with each other, and Moose says this needs to happen, and Oba says, oh, don't worry, it's going to.
I honestly never thought I would see this, especially in a WWE ring.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But seeing Moose crossover was not on my bingo board, and especially him and Obafemi. Like, that's such a dream scenario for many people.
Do you know what it is? And it's weird because you shouldn't do people by type. Okay, there's a big guy, let's make that the match. Like, I said it relatively quickly, and a lot of people ran with it really quickly when Moose was still the TNA champion.
Yeah.
When he was being chased down by Nemeth and everybody else, and I guess the ships didn't cross at the right time for it to be like world champion versus world champion, but there's no way they can't do that again down the line. Minor spoiler, if you don't want a spoiler, fast forward by like 10 seconds. The tapings that happened after the live TNA, there was another altercation between Moose and Obafemi coming after what happened this week, which we're going to talk about in a second. And it was announced that at Roadblock at Madison Square Garden Theater, it is going to be Moose versus Obafemi for the NXT Championship. I'm not surprised that they're not doing it title for title, just the same as when Jordan Grace came over as the Knockouts champion. It wasn't title for title, because then something's got to give. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think if they drop it now and these guys don't touch each other until Madison Square Garden, I'd be fine with that. This is like the purest form of let's just have an exhibition. Like, okay, on day 1, you say you're going to get Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. On day 100, you're getting the match. You don't have to do anything in the middle. Now,
yeah, you really don't.
Obviously, they have done some stuff in the middle already that we're going to talk about. But this is great. Moose coming out to interrupt Oba when Oba's already got his mind set on other things. Like I said, he initially came out to talk about the 4 other guys in masks that had jumped a lot of people at the pay-per-view. Here's a perfect time not to take advantage of your being weakened, but to take advantage of your eyes not where it needs to be. Thought it was very cool. Not the only table setting for crossover that we saw on the night. We saw Fraxium, who are obviously still the tag champions, had a face-to-face with No Quarter Catch Crew. They were demanding a title shot. Fraxium said no. And it's like, well, who said we wanted your titles? We want to face the best. They turn to the camera. They do the interview down the camera lens, and they call out the Hardy Boys. Now, we're going to talk about that match later on. I do have to say, there's kind of a tight rope here that they have to walk, where you have a challenger looking at your champions and saying, "Now we don't want those belts, we want the other belts."
Yeah.
You have to sort of underline that that's not NXT digging out NXT's own champions. Like, sort of be careful how you play with that. But we're going to get the Hardys in NXT, man.
Yes, and what a crazy thing to say for that, but out of everything we got, I mean, the Hardys makes perfect sense. We got a lot of these, like, big matchups. So for Cincinnati alone, it's like, holy cow. And one of the moments that stuck out for me, obviously, was not that far later, the triple threat for the women's. We got Petrovic winning, but it was everything afterwards. So it kind of made me laugh because...
Oh, I should say, sorry, before we get off of this completely, because we're going to actually talk about that match later on. In the Hardys' response, because they've already had face-to-face with Fraxium, who've been doing really cool stuff over in TNA, and clearly are going to do a champions versus champions, like, exhibition match at some point. In their response, they even said, we'd really love it if Fraxium would pull up a chair and watch what we have to offer. So, yeah, Hardy Boys, once again, stepping into a WWE ring, awesome enough. It feels like a nostalgia pop at this point, and I say that respectfully. The fact that it's happening in NXT, and Jeff Hardy can be a little bit weird, and they can do some stuff. Whenever they get around to this Hardys versus Fraxium, champions versus champions match, I have a feeling they're going to do something weird with it, like the match where the Hardys in TNA became the tag team champions.
Yes.
And it was the main event of the pay-per-view, and they turned basically the entire arena into the Hardy compound with all the weapons and tables and whatever that were done up in like Hardy graffiti. It was
funny.
It was the same week that they literally went into the next week's tapings and Chris Bay got hurt, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it was
so awful in that match, but
ABC, Hardys, and the System triple threat, Full Metal Mayhem type stuff. With Fraxium, the way that Fraxium are like so overly animated, but also like they're baby faces in the virtue of the fact that people like them, but they're also kind of dickheads.
No, you're right.
I feel like them and the Hardys somewhere down the line is going to be a point, to the point where this match is kind of going to fall by the wayside as like a building block to that, which is kind of unfortunate, but it is.
But I don't hate it, honestly.
Now,
and
talk about the triple threat.
Yeah, the triple threat, the match itself was, like you said before, it was more on the basic side, but Jada got a really good frog splash at one point, and that caused the NXT chance. Jordan got the Pele kick, and she almost won. That was a nice, near fall. And then Carmen hit the Frankensteiners, which was cool.
Yeah.
So
Carmen out there with Ashanti the Adonis, which is a fun little story.
So I really like the ending. I know people were kind of poo-pooing on it, but Jada's dancing, strutting her stuff, shaking her ass, and she's taunting, and basically Petrovic gets thrown back in the ring by Ashanti, but then she goes and she just does the pin, steals the pin, and I was like, oh shit, that's great. You were too busy, running your mouth.
Yeah, you were doing an end zone dance.
Exactly. So some people were like, "Oh, that's lazy." No, I enjoyed the ending. I liked the story they told there. Like, hey, you're too full of yourself, and if you just got the match done, you would have had it. And then you've also got Ashanti throwing her in, so that kind of plays into it. But it's the after thing. So what really made me laugh here is that Kalani's getting the shit kicked out of her in the ring by Fatal Influence, and they go to a commercial break. And when they come back from the break, you see Julia, Stephanie, and Kalani all on the ground in the ring getting destroyed by Fatal Influence. And they're like a numbers game, but really there's 3-on-3 now. So finally the sirens hit, and Jordan Grace runs out.
The story they were telling was Petrovic wasn't a factor anymore because the three of them had taken her out already.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where you get your 3-on-2 story.
Oh, I was saying with Kalani still being beaten, but...
Well, no, because Kalani and Parker sort of rolled off.
Yeah, so they took off too. So I was like, all right, cool with what they did. I appreciate the little bit of a change up there, but really it's all about getting the 6 women tag. So we're getting Grace, Julia, and Stephanie taking on Fatal Influence. Sign me up for that. So that's what, at Roadblock?
No, the triple threat or the 3-on-3?
The triple threat.
No.
What are they doing for the title? Do we know yet? No, right?
For the North American title?
No, for Julia. She doesn't have anything, right?
We don't know yet.
So, I wasn't positive because as I know next week, this upcoming week for Cincinnati, we are getting Vacour against
Carmen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure if they had anything lined up for Julia that I missed.
I think it's kind of funny that they used this triple threat to set up the Fatal Influence coming out, and then when they actually had the brawl, when all the big headliners came out, none of the people that were actually in that triple threat were involved in the brawl anymore.
Yeah.
Because they really kind of came in and overshot. Now, I will say, like, the headline of all of this is it's Jordan Grace's debut match in NXT. And people fought me on this. It is her debut in NXT.
Yeah.
Because she was a guest. Yes, she had title matches. Yes, she had feuds with people, but she was a guest representing TNA. Yes,
she was a feature.
Yes, we saw her in the Rumble, but the Rumble isn't NXT specific. This was her first match as a contracted NXT star. This was her match to make a statement. Before, she was making a visitor statement, or if you want to say it like an invading statement, this is her arrival statement.
Yeah, making the most of your minutes.
If you want to use NXT old vernacular,
yes,
this was Jordan Grace
arrival.
This was Jordan Grace arrival, right? And I mean, obviously, like, Fatal Influence are amazing, and they're amazing losers as well.
Yeah, they've done a lot to really really add to the heel dynamic of NXT, because obviously we lost a few, and then we really didn't have too much of a fleshed out women's heel division at that point in time, and they really kind of added to it as time split on. I think they've done a great job. We say it all the time, the best women's division, but when you look at how things are being handled on AEW and even the main roster at times, it's like we've gotten delays with some of the main roster stuff that's been kind of baffling. It shouldn't have gone that way maybe, and
people got their stopwatches out for SmackDown because they're being
people
strange.
were originally upset that the match got canceled for the women's side of things, and then they had Liv Morgan get her match announced again just to go ahead and get this no disqualification. It was a mess. So I get why people are
I don't buy that. I really don't. And call me a WWE guy, whatever. People are acting like, okay, we had a match and the match was stopped because of interference and whatever. Isn't a regular story beat anyway. Everything has
I think
to be an
people
identity
were
politics
upset
thing.
because they canceled the match, so they took it off of the show, and then when they got a bunch of feedback, apparently they put it back on for the night, and then it was kind of like, oh, we brought it back, but really it was just kind of a haha, fuck you, you're still not getting the match. So I was like, kind of an interesting way to look at it. I don't see it that way, but
yeah. But I don't know. Jordan's first official match, she's in there with the big stars. She gets to stand between the two champions and say, which title am I going to go for? Which I
and
thought
she
was
looks
a nice
on
touch.
equal footing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course she's on equal. I mean, she looks.
But
like
they've done a great job
lunch.
about that, because it is a very precarious situation, because they've had all these big name talents come in at one specific point in time. So to go ahead and have any of them feel kind of like fallen behind or forgotten about can be a real big issue. And thankfully, they've kind of had everybody doing something that fits or matters. And I mean, like we said before, with Zarya and Sol Ruga, like, she's still on TV, she's being found, it's working, like it's happening in a way that's good. So,
but I think if you don't want to hotshot everybody, I get that.
No.
But because she's already such a name, and because she's already had such an impact on the show before she was even there, I think bringing her in as like a newbie who's like gotta grind it out and earn her way to the, like, it would be so disingenuous at this point, because
Exactly.
even if you only watch WWE, you've already been exposed to Jordan Grace. You've already got people on the main roster saying, hey, when do I get my match with Jordan Grace?
yeah,
I mean,
you've seen her at the Rumble. You've seen
clearly Bianca Belair's the wrong choice. Rhea Ripley's the right choice. But like, if you're being spoken of in those circles, then starting at the bottom of NXT, with all due respect, doesn't fit in this case.
No, it really doesn't. And
anyway,
so,
but yeah, she's got her debut under her belt. Yeah,
they're putting rockets on people, but without anybody else being forgotten about. And on top of it, they're still managing to tell compelling stories. Like, I'm really curious to see what happens with, Julia. Who's she going to face? Are we going to see her and Jordan take each other on? And we can get the face versus face things at times. And there's ways to have these things have it and work.
I wonder, because when Jordan Grace came in, it was the first initial crossover, and it was champion versus champion, and it was her and Roxanne.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, once the not Jade Cargill, Cora Jade stuff is out of the way, do we get another round of that with Masha and Julia? Because I think that would be a lot of fun.
I think that would be incredibly fun.
I don't think it would be on a pay-per-view, because I don't think it would have a really, really earth-shattering result. Because champion versus champion is always a thing for that, right? But
Exactly.
I mean, even if you just say like, bring the knockouts,
do it on the St. Patrick's Day show or something like that.
Well,
it's good for
an
a
exhibition would be, because NXT doesn't have their own women's tag titles anymore. But say you had like Julia and Stephanie Vacour, who are the two singles champions, and they want to take on whoever the women's tag champions on the other side are, as an exhibition in that sense.
It would be great.
Because right now that would be that would be Julia and Stephanie Vacour taking on Spitfire.
Yep.
Which would be a lot of fun, by the way.
Absolutely.
Speaking of people crossing over, crossing lines, crossing barriers, crossing into new territories, what do we think of Absolute Ricky Saints?
I love the name.
I like it too.
And if he had to change it, at least it's something that's recognizable. It's close enough to his name, Ricky Starks, Ricky Saints. It's almost like you're saying the same thing. It's not.
It's close enough, yeah. It's
Walter
not
to Gunther.
Bob, it's not Bob Smith.
Yeah, Gunther saved his namesake by having an incredible work rate and doing what he does best in the ring and backing it up. But if you remember the conversation at that point, it was like he's dead on arrival. As soon as he went to the main roster, that's it. Gunther's done for. It's Walter.
Well, the thing
bust.
is, they changed him to Gunther in NXT, so they changed him early enough, and this might just be my own read on it, but they changed him early enough that the people watching him on the WWE side of things weren't losing something that they already had a bunch of experience with.
Yes, exactly.
So, like, he was all right, but I mean, like, Ziggler
was
went
a
to
hard
TNA
sell
and he's
at
Nick
that
Nemeth,
time.
so...
Yeah. And that's a totally different, namesake entirely. So it's interesting to see what they go through, what they have, and I'm happy that it's close enough to where it doesn't feel out of the realm of Ricky Starks. And I like that
the way they kept away from anybody saying his name for so long. They really played everybody, because those of us that are used to old WWE are being, oh my God, he's going to be Xander Stephanopoulos or some bullshit.
I love the way that everybody interrupted him constantly. That was funny, Wesley and his guru. Then you got Ethan Page coming out, and so we get the tag match.
Ethan came out first,
because
Javon chased him off, and I thought how how much is the other side kicking themselves? Because who's another really successful person that just came from the other side? It's Ethan Page. Ethan Page came in and they threw a world title on him.
Yeah, right away.
Ricky Saints. I mean, with the announcement that next year WrestleMania is going to be in New Orleans, can you see Ricky Saints, if not already being the champion, winning the championship at next year's Stand and Deliver?
He said that no matter what, he is going to wrestle at WrestleMania in that, in the arena. Yeah. He's like, this is happening. This is all there is to it. No one's going to tell me otherwise. I always was going to manifest my own destiny, and that's
you know what?
As
we get closer to the date, they'll change the quote slightly, and it'll be like, I'm going to wrestle WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah, they'll alter it.
Then you get Stand and Deliver.
He made a bunch of great points. On After Dark, busted open After Dark, and him and Bubba were just spitting it out
with legends.
Well, he went
veterans.
He helped train The Undertaker, to get back into ring shape for his match against Cena at Mania, and he helped Michelle McCool when she was returning for the Rumble. And Undertaker really just can't help but put him over. And nice. When they were filming After Dark, that's when he showed up to NXT, to make his debut. And both of them were just like, "Oh my God!" while watching the TV. So it was a cool little payoff for both of them. And they just said how cool of a guy he's been, how hard he's worked, and what he deserves. And he always bet on himself. So he said it must have been a difficult thing now, but he looks back and it seems like there was definitely a legend there that didn't like him and didn't want him to succeed, sadly.
Yeah. And I mean, and I'm sorry, I'm an Edge guy as much as anybody else is, but if it's because of that one promo with him and Edge that everybody's seen, discount Rock, whatever, let's try not being petty. I know you're in the petty company now.
It sounds like it's Dax. Dax was really pissed at him not, with being at the Rumble and being, and it's like Tony said it's okay, and obviously you're going to support friends. Why does a tribalism have to be there? Just because they're a competing company, it's still your former friend. It's still, you know what I mean? Former coworker. Don't you want to see them? I don't know. It's baffling to me, but
I don't know. I just
I'm happy with the name change. I'm happy with
the tag match. To be on the other side, to be on the critical side once again. To be fair, NXT needed to do something to the men's division.
Yes,
because
he could not have come at a better point in time. Yeah. Honestly, he is
I would be more
perfectly needed.
I would be more interested, and this is not any dig at Obafemi. It would be a slightly different clash of characters if he came in at a time where Trick was still champion.
Yes,
because then you could play around with either one of them being heel, and I think it would work. Because right now, if he was to go against Oba, it would just be like Ricky the Giant Slayer type stuff, which is fine, and we can save Trick for another day or whatever.
But there's more to Saints than that, and that's what I think. They really want to encapsulate and let people realize, hey, this is what we can do. There's a lot to this. And I love it. I'm just very excited for, like you said, what am I going to do? I'm going to show the audience who I am and what they've been missing out on. I'm going to show them, what believing in yourself is. And he's like, I've always. I still like
the way, and I know it was all done in short notice, and there's all kinds of backstage stories and whatever. I still like him the previous week. Just walking out of the crowd, no pomp, no circumstances, no song, advertising, no nothing, and just popping up, just strolling among the crowd, making a quick statement and leaving. And then this is the logical next step. Obviously, Ava introducing him as the most sought after. Everybody they sign is going to be the most sought after whatever, right? But they're treating him the right way, I think. No matter how much or how little you want to believe about his last days in AEW, it sounds like he wasn't having a great time.
Yeah,
so
no,
let's just as much as we like to take a dig at AEW, sometimes let's leave that behind. Let's see what he does. Hopefully they treat him.
That's
the right
exactly
way.
it. That's done and over with now. There's no more need of it. It's just bury that and let's move on. Let's see what Saints can do, what he can bring us, what he's got to offer. That's what interests me. I don't give a shit about...
I wanted him to show up on SmackDown so that him and The Rock could do the Spider-Man meme.
Yes, right, pointing at each other. But he makes a good point. People have called him a lesser version of the Hollywood, but that's never what he set out to try or attempted to do.
But I mean, here's the thing, right?
I would take it as a compliment in a way.
Not everybody likes The Rock, but you can't deny The Rock's success. So if you're being spoken of in your I don't want to say developmental stage, but like your first rung on the ladder in WWE,
Yeah.
and you're already being spoken of in comparison to The Rock. That's not a bad place to be.
No, it's really not.
Now, speaking of people who don't necessarily have a name set up just yet, we ended the show with Ava in her office. Everything's been all torn up by the Rebel 4 guys, and they've all beat up Robert Stone and whatever, and that's just how we go off the air. I'm not bringing it up so much to say, oh my god, what a cool thing, because it was like 5 seconds at the end of the show. They did a beatdown that we didn't even see. They did it off camera, whatever. But it's a simple thing of they bookended the show. Because what did we start the show with? We started off, before Moose came out, we had Obafemi storm into the building looking for those 4 guys. Then we got completely taken for a ride. The Moose thing happened. The No Quarter Catch crew calling out the Hardys. The Ricky Saints debut. Jordan Grace's debut. But we wrapped it back up again as those 4 guys that we talked about in the first minute of the show are still an issue.
Yes.
And I thought, not that it was a great segment, but that was such a great little, like I said, like book cover.
Exactly.
Bookend,
like, hey,
however you want to say it.
Yeah, these guys are still a threat. And we don't know what they're going to do, but look at how they picked up and threw Oba, and so...
Because you can believe those guys that are making that assertion into the brand are thinking themselves, like, hey, there's a lot of things going on NXT right now, but don't forget about us.
Exactly.
And that's sticking in that last little, like I say, 5-10 second thing at the end does all that.
And that's all they needed.
Now, if that's not enough, we go to Live TNA.
I will say this wasn't as great as their first TNA Live episode after 8 years, but it was still very, very good. I enjoy what they gave us here, and there was enough surprise elements and fun moments as well that it held my interest. So I will give them that, thankfully. But
Joe Hendry has the opening concert. Love the Joe Hendry stuff. Interrupted by the Colognes, who are going to go in there and double team him.
Yeah, and talk about a random.
This is the point I was going to make, because who comes out to save him is Elijah, who we then find out has actually signed with TNA. I don't want to go into the Righteous and the ROH thing and all that kind of stuff, because apparently that was a red herring. But
really, so that was all. But bullshit.
Here's the thing: the story becomes like Elijah is in TNA, but like you kind of skip over the whole. They also have the Colognes.
Yeah.
Who are a good team, a solid team, who have a lot of, even if they're not going to be like the heads of your division or whatever, they've got.
Yeah, they're not the Hardys, but they're
solid.
A good heel team to.
They're
be
solid.
your foil.
They probably, and I don't want to use this like default answer, but they probably have a lot to offer, like other younger people that haven't been around as long. Like do that whole like player coach thing, like we love having you on screen, but also like. Never know who could benefit from them in the back as well. So
Absolutely. It
kind of sucks that their debut in TNA got overshadowed by Elijah, but obviously. And then they went on to have the tag team match at the end of the night, which was not a huge. And then we just got announcements. We got, as you've already mentioned, Wesley, Tyreek, and Tyson are going to be taking on the Rascals and Ace Austin at Sacrifice, which is very cool.
We've also got Masha taking on.
Well, this is the thing. There was a bit of a hodgepodge because Tessa was being made to wrestle tonight. They called her all kinds of things when she came out to cut her promo. Instead of just calling her racist, they were doing the Booker T. We coming for you, Tessa. We coming for you, Tessa. Which I thought was hilarious. She refuses to wrestle. Masha Slamovich comes out as the champion to set the example. It's okay, if she doesn't want to wrestle, I'll take her match. You pan to the ring and you see that there's an enhancement talent that's been waiting in the ring the whole time.
Yeah, all that time.
I was just like, that's kind of crazy. And then at the end, you get the attack from Cora Jade, who also sort of walks by and eyeballs Tessa as well. So we get the announcement on commentary that Cora Jade will also be at Sacrifice taking on Masha Slamovich for her Knockouts Championship. I don't want to be a downer. We know how that match is going to go. But are we going to see a partnership between Cora and Tessa? Is Masha Slamovich going to lean on a friend? Is this going to be what brings back Killer Kelly into the mix? Because Killer Kelly went off to do family stuff for a bit, and we don't know when she's coming back. There's a lot here. Like, I could see Cora Jade, because Cora Jade, I don't know why, she looks 10 times more confident on TNA.
Yeah.
Than she does in NXT, which is weird.
I can agree with that.
I can't put my finger on it.
Oddly enough.
But if she and Tessa, or Tessa, thinks she can use her as a partner for a little bit or whatever. You get maybe some tag matches or some triple threats or some fatal four ways out of that. That could be a lot of fun. But we had a match on there. It was JDC taking on Leon Slater, because Leon Slater is the latest person to be having issues with the system.
The system, yes.
Fuck me, the system. Jesus, the system needs to go away. The system.
It's funny how I don't care for Brian Myers. I've never been a fan of, really. There's not much of him as a
believable lackey in a group. He's good, and he's even been good solo occasionally when he was just coming. But you grown, right?
Yeah.
But he comes out as this guy who's the most generic guy ever, with this belief that he's the greatest guy ever. And if you're in a certain kind of mood, you can find that really lame and funny.
See, the thing is with him, I find Dango JDC more entertaining and funny than I would anything to do.
But see, you find him entertaining.
Yes.
Right? The guy that you don't find entertaining, thinking he's the most entertaining guy in the room, is sort of works on a very, very low, backwards level. I'm talking me,
but I get the point.
I'm talking bottom of the barrel, it barely works, but it works, right? It would be like The Miz saying he was going to have a 5-star match with Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, but they definitely need a refresh with this. The system could be done and over with. I don't think anybody would complain.
Leon Slater, who's been doing trios matches with the Hardys for the past little while, Hardys come out to make the save. It's still 4-on-3. Obafemi comes out. Obafemi looks 1,000,000 feet tall. Obafemi stands tall in the ring with the Hardys. What the fuck world are we living in?
Holy hell.
All of this is going to converge in Cincinnati as well because of the collection of matches. But it's announced next week. It's already been taped and whatever. We don't need to talk about it. But there's a trios match. 3 members of the system taking on Obafemi and the Hardys.
Yes.
What the fuck is that, Jake?
That alone is exciting. Because you figure for Cincinnati coming up, I mean, we've got quite a bit. So we've got Matt and Jeff taking on.
I was going to say we're basically done on my we're basically done on my show notes, so we might as well get into Cincinnati now.
Yeah, and Stephanie's obviously Vekor's taking on Petrovic. Petrovic's not going to win, but that's going to be a hell of a match. And Carmen's really done a good job at running with this gimmick. She's got the katana blades, obviously. But I feel like she's finding herself more and more.
It's funny
she reminds
because
me of a Harley Cameron.
They bury her under gimmicks. But at the same time, she's proving that she's a great... the whole thing with her and Ashante is a gimmick. The whole thing with her coming out and doing the sword display as part of her entrance is a gimmick, right? But, it's as soon as she gets in the ring, she takes off the gimmicks like she's taking off a jacket. And then she just goes in there and wrestles and kicks ass. So it's a very two-sided... what did I used to say about Tony D? Tony D's got the mobster gimmick, and he's got the family with him. And then he goes in the ring and does everything he possibly can to shed the gimmick and be like, no, actually take me serious as a wrestler, too.
Yeah. Oh, fuck me. Speaking of taking you serious, and I did say fuck me with full enticement there, sir.
Okay.
I want to know what you thought of the first, Francis, first class promo / segment.
I didn't hear all of it because I was also watching along with the Wrestling for Life guys. I get that he did the whole I left WWE to come and save TNA.
Yes.
It was lame. It's the kind of thing that's supposed to make you groan because we know he was released. I really like AJ Francis. It's very, very tainted by the fact that I see the stuff that he does off camera. I see all the charity shit that he does. I've had a chance to meet the guy, and he's super nice. He's winding everybody up saying shit like that, but that's what it's... And he's teaming with Casey Navarro, who is...
Casey's pissing everybody off. He's good at it.
He's the...
annoying little flea. What a flick away, yeah.
Well, he's also the Destiny Next Generation champion. Check it off
your
Phoenix bucket list. It's fine. So I'm a little bit biased on that one.
They were teasing, too, because he's like, oh, we have a guest for tonight. He's phenomenal. He's got so much style. AJ Francis. And he's like,
he's done the AJ thing before.
But it works every time. The crowd.
Well, because Joe Hendry, when he was actually getting a shot at Joe Hendry last year, I think he Joe Hendry did a song about him as like,
Yes.
you're TNA's other AJ and stuff like that. So it's been a minute, but like,
Yes, but it was so well done.
It's probably, I'm probably giving free passes here. AJ Francis can do whatever he likes. The guy does incredible shit in his real life. I've met him. He's a good dude.
So these are usually the segments I would poo-poo all over,
Yeah.
and he was so into it, it worked. I don't know why he had Noelle Foley and Frank the Clown with him, or what the hell they were trying to get into there.
Because I think it's just like, I think TNA is one of those places where like anybody who's in the back hanging out could be in a segment.
Yeah,
Which
like,
is
hey,
which
we'll
is
just
kind of a
have you
cool
here.
loose thing of like, hey, you never know what you're gonna see. But no, I didn't mind. I side with everybody that thought it was lame, everybody that thought it was, oh my God, why would he say this? We know what really happened. It's like, yeah, that's exactly why he said it.
That's why he's saying it. Yeah,
Of course, he's so delusional that he came down to help TNA. Like, I would love to see AJ Francis, or I would love to see First Class come to NXT and get a tag title run or something.
I could see it happening, and here's the thing: he's improved himself drastically since being Flop Dollar. He spoke well
okay,
here.
let's take the piss out of that for a second, because there's a million videos out there of him pulling that off perfectly, even before he was in WWE. That was one night, and that was a bad line that somebody else fed Michael Cole.
Exactly.
Like, that was pretty shit.
But it was very, like you said, he's done it every other time, and they just ran with that and shit on him for it, and it was unfortunate because I feel like he really got kind of a bad rap with that, unfortunately.
I want to know how many people that are his size can do that.
Exactly, and that was one of the things that really attracted me to Luke Harper early on, was how agile and maneuverable he was. He would do these crazy, like, tope suicidas and shit, and just all of this stuff that you wouldn't typically see from a big guy like that, and it just always made the Wyatts stand out. Like, you look at the stuff they did with the Shield, jumping over the ropes and flying through, like, it looked like nothing. These guys constantly made it seem like they were, tiny big men, and that's impressive.
Yeah.
So again,
the very first,
it's one of the things I like about Moose.
Like, and two of them aren't with us anymore, which makes it super unfortunate. But do you remember the very first standoff between the Wyatts and the Shield, when nobody even had to say anything?
Yeah,
fucking great.
Just them facing off was everything. So one of the things that I'm not for, however, and you might be, is Li Ying Lee. So she's another one, like, they've sandwiched with gimmicks, and it's like, you're Asian and Oriental, and let's do this, and it just feels very uninspired, I would say. It just feels super generic, and like, hey, it's another Carmen Petrovic just without any refining. It feels like. So
I will say, though, apparently it's and I'm going to give it the Nikki Cross defense a little bit. In TNA, she's been very outspoken about how they have given her free reign to incorporate her own stuff culturally as much or as little as she feels like needs to be in the character. I always look at it a little bit differently when I know it's coming from the person, because I'm like, okay, they think they've got something and they're running with it. Nikki ASH is always the example I go to. Wasn't for me, wasn't supposed to be for me, right? But like, she wanted to do something for kids. She thought she had an idea, and they let her run with it. I've got 10 times more patience for that than I do if somebody said, okay, they're Chinese, they do this.
Yeah.
It's
okay,
shit.
So knowing that she's able to incorporate things, I guess, a little bit easier to swallow.
It can still not be for you. It's not really for me either. Like, I'm not Chinese. There's probably a lot of stuff in that whole presentation that I don't even understand. So maybe it's not for me, but it's for somebody. Like, it's that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
But I also don't think that they're trying to make you think like she's the next person we're going to ride the whole company on just yet. Who knows? Maybe she will be one day.
It's a possibility.
She had so many false... Again, we'll go back to, some fair criticism for WWE. She had so many false starts in NXT and WWE. So if she manages to get some traction and get up off the ground in TNA, good for her.
Absolutely.
And if it takes a little bit of what we see as being gimmicky and she sees as being just like, I want to incorporate a little bit more of my background and whatever, then cool. And if it's not for me, if it's not for me, then it won't be the thing that I'm excited for on the night, but it doesn't hurt my feelings either. But swinging around back to Carmen Petrovic, she's awesome. Stephanie's going to win. It is what it is.
One thing that's not really biting my attention yet is Sami Callihan and him hunting down Mance.
I like Sami, and I have no connection to Mance whatsoever, so that's where I fall down.
I've seen him a little bit in GCW, but not enough to be like, oh, this guy.
Yeah. I said current paranoid Sami Callihan versus current paranoid Kevin Owens would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's a crossover that we really could have a good time with.
But now, we'll bring it back to the tag team scenario. I thought it was a tag team title match. It's actually not. It's a non-title match between the No Quarter Catch crew and the Hardys. Pretty sure we're not going to get a finish here. I think it's going to be a case of Fraxium's going to be on the outside. There's going to be some sort of altercation. Somebody's going to... Or even...
Well, especially because we're getting the system taken out. You know what I mean? Like, we got that six-man tag coming up with the Hardys, too. So it really feels like, hey, this is the...
But, I mean, I don't want to say anything against No Quarter Catch Group because I think on their own they're developing as a pretty kick-ass team as well. But they're there to be the other guys in the ring while NXT says, hey, look, we've got the Hardys.
Yeah.
And they're going to tell their story with Fraxium and NQCC are just going to be on the other side of things. And, like, first-generation Randy Orton and Tavion Heights are going to do their best to hold up their end of the bargain. We're going to get a confrontation between the two sets of champions. It's going to probably lead to Roadblock. But I'm curious to see what the Hardys do with a relatively new group like NQCC. I'm really curious to see.
That's going to be a fun match.
Because obviously Charlie Dempsey is going to be on the outside as well. I want to see what an interaction between Charlie Dempsey and Jeff Hardy looks like.
Yeah, and on top of the fact that, like, hey, this is their chance to really show off with a younger, subsect of, the audience. So.
Oh, yeah.
It really, like you said, it helps everybody. Everybody's, the rising tide yet again, but it really is. Like, think about it. These guys are working with legends like the Hardys, so it not only does it, like, immediately raise their stock, but it just helps the entire crew. So, really, it's one of the things I've always appreciated about the Hardys. Like, even when they were doing the indie stuff, they weren't worried about putting themselves over.
No.
They're like, oh, we could lose matches. We don't care. It's not going to affect us.
But also, okay... that's a careful thing to play with, though, because they also know they're in a position where they don't have to worry about what they look like anymore.
Yes.
Other people aren't in that same position.
No,
but
they certainly work.
Hardy's win or some kind of F finish. Stephanie's going to defend her title, obviously. Moose is going to kill Lexis King because Lexis King and him interacted in the back. It's technically champion versus champion.
I don't remember who it was. I know it was obviously Lexis King in AEW, so when he was Pillman Jr. still, but he either took on Lance Archer or the other one there.
Brian Cage.
Yeah, Brian Cage. It was one of the two.
Oh, he ragdolls really well. And because
he sold so great for both of them, so I'm really curious to see how this plays out.
Here's the thing, once again, that I want to see what they're going to do with some of these dynamics, because they've got Moose, who's a heel, who's targeting Obafemi, who's not exactly a face, and you got Moose's first match in NXT, which is against Lexis King, who's also a heel. So they're really playing fast and loose with the dynamics and the what do you want to call it? The face heel.
Yeah, exactly.
Calculations, I guess.
I get that.
But I do think he kind of goes a little under the radar. He's got that Miz thing to him where he's just annoying enough that it's really satisfying when he gets the shit kicked out of him. And there is a value to that. Like, Chelsea Green has it too, except everybody likes her.
Yeah.
Grayson Waller has it. Austin Theory has it to a little bit of a lesser degree just because Grayson Waller's a little more charismatic. But there's people out there, like we always say, Ziggler, who goes in there and does a solid job of just making everybody else look good. That's not the same. That's not the same as being such a twat that people want to see you
get your ass kicked, but not go away heat either. There's a fine line
that's
there
the thing.
Too.
Like,
I want to
we're all in on the joke.
Like Wesley is one that I want to see get his ass beat, but I don't want to see him go away. You know, like, you fucked the Rascals again. But I like watching him compete, and I like seeing him get beat up. He's a good heel. As we're kind of missing that from, we were from the men's side. So Starks is one that can really elevate things there.
Yep.
And I like Eddie. I like him more recently than I did originally. I always did, like they've made him a lot more. Was cool.
They've made him, and I think it was really cool this week on NXT that two other people, I can't. Oh, it was the new Andre Chase group that were like, we're gonna do a Rager. We want you to come and DJ. He's like, no, I don't do that anymore. Now I'm here to kick ass. So they're slowly shedding away bits of his old gimmick, which is absolutely fine.
Which is perfect because that old gimmick was leaving a lot to be desired.
Now, I'm predicting, because of the name value of the Hardys and the NQCC is going to be the main event of this show.
Yeah.
What should be the main event of this show is Ricky Saints and Javon Evans versus Ethan Page and Wes Lee. Because what the fuck is that going to look like?
It should be, yeah. That's going to be crazy. And, you know,
we know
got
who's
a lot
gonna
to
win.
prove. Yeah, he's got a lot to prove right now. So you know Saints is going to come out there like a fucking madman, really trying to push the envelope. So I'm excited to see what we get from that match.
I think it's a Javon story as well, though, because Javon, we all thought was going to have that, you know, all reconquering hero thing at the pay-per-view, and it got ripped away, which I thought was excellent.
Great storytelling.
But, you know, the only thing better than getting the victory you want is not getting the victory you want with a babyface like Javon Evans. So for him to get somewhat of a consolation prize victory here is kind of bittersweet, and to do it alongside Ricky Saints, who obviously is going to have a win on his debut.
Yeah, because he not only got destroyed, he got his jaw re-injured, you know, so they were really trying to sell the dastardly deeds of Ethan Page, and I thought they did that very well.
Of course, and the other thing is, as well, is like Ethan doesn't get hurt by a loss, Wes doesn't get hurt by a loss. Wes might have Tyson and Tyreek in their corner as well. You might have a 5-on or a 4-on-2 situation. You know what I would love?
What's that?
And it's kind of off the wall because there's not really a storyline reason for it to happen. Is if Ethan and Wes are out there and they've got backup with Tyson and Tyreek, you know who I would love to see show up randomly to have Ricky and Javon's back?
Who's that?
Would be Hank and Tank.
Hank and Tank. Milo agrees.
Milo agrees.
He does agree. You know, Hank and Tank would be a lot of fun, and I think they'd be a really good.
Because there you've got an 8-man in your pocket for later on down the line.
And we kind of skipped over, but it was pretty passable. The main event was Hendry and Elijah taking on the Colognes, and the match was just kind of a match. Sadly, it was more about the spots of the guitar with Elijah, and he hit a great tombstone at the end. That pile driver looked fantastic.
But again, it's like you said, it's just where the Colognes once again they're playing the other guys in the ring while they announce that they've got Elijah on their roster now.
I think everybody was waiting for Elijah to turn on, you know, right away, turn on Hendry. So when he didn't do that, it was kind of a refreshing
But
take.
the thing is, you let it go for a week, you can do that next week. You let it go for another week, you can do it on the third week.
Exactly.
If Joe Hendry decides he's showing up at Roadblock, Elias can say, hey, I've been here before. Bam.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot to have with it. So I am interested and intrigued to see where he kind of falls into things. But like we said, continuing with Cincinnati, and I forgot to mention to you, too, NXT this week, they did well. They got 689,000 viewers.
Oh, good.
So it's down from the 801 the week before with the, obviously, for everything that they had going into Vengeance Day.
Oh, yeah.
But AEW also did really poorly this week. So Collision at Grand Slam, even being late, they got something. It was close to 502,000 viewers. And Dynamite was down as well. So everything took a hit this week because of how TV worked out with it being the holiday.
After what happened in Australia, I figured there'd be like an excitement deficit.
Kind of too. So but like we said, because we got Ricky and Javon taking on Wes and Ethan Page. We've got Moose and Lexis King, Stephanie against Carmen, and then we've got the Hardys taking on Miles and Tavon. So that's going to be great. And then for next week's TNA,
they don't have very much on for the Cincinnati show. They have the 4 main matches. When they go out of the PC, which we've talked about before, I think it's going to happen more and more and more. They advertise less because I think they plan more surprises at those live shows.
There's also supposed to be a segment with the women, I thought, between Julia, or at least something going on with that.
Okay.
That's why I was confused, because I know I heard something was happening. But
they've got a lot of people sort of circulating the Women's North American Championship. They really do. If Roxanne is fully on the main roster again, unless they're jumping right into Jordynne Grace, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, they do have to prop up somebody else to take on Julia, because Jordynne Grace is the big one, but I think you want to save that for Stand and Deliver. Oi, oi, oi.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So it'll be interesting to see what she does in the meantime, or is it a case where there's a lot of people going for Stephanie and Julia spends a lot of her storyline time teaming with her partner to be like the 2-woman power trip with Jordynne Grace on the side occasionally, but then you've really put your main champion, this main big name that you've just gotten and put a belt on, you're really putting her in cruise control if you attach her to the mid-card champion that much.
Exactly.
They're
No,
not
you're right.
a horrible team either. Like, I hope nobody listening to me hears me the wrong way. Like, teaming with Stephanie Vacour is not a demotion.
No.
But if your storyline is being a part of the mid-card storyline, the mid-card championship storyline while you're the main champion, you got to do some fast talking to make that work.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's something that's off there. So
Yeah. Anyways, but I think we've covered it because, like I said, there's only 4 matches to talk about. Lots to look forward to in NXT, lots to look forward to in TNA. I keep hearing the same rumor circulate over and over and over again that Stand and Deliver Oi 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 is going to be a cross-branded pay-per-view.
that would be incredible.
If it gets I don't want to jump on it too soon. If it gets confirmed, we could talk about it later on down the line. But right now, what we're going to talk about is where they can find you.
Yeah, so again, I'll be live this Tuesday. We'll see what's going on with you and I, but I'll be live at least after the Cincinnati show, and then we will have our predictions coming up after that on Wednesday or Thursday for the Chamber, because did you know that you're going to be there?
They put the Chamber in the Dome.
They put it in the Dome, and you're going to be there.
I'm going to be there, and so's The Rock.
And then I will be
CM
live
Punk.
while you're there looking at The Rock, CM Punk, and Cody Rhodes, and John Cena, if you can see him, you know. I'm excited to see what happens, and we're going to have a great time, so you can come and hang out with me, youtube.com/countdownended, or Jake DeMarco. I've got 2 links. It's up to you. You can find me on Twitter at countdownended, and feel free to reach out. Send me any comments, questions, ideas you may have. And we will be, like I said, going live quite a bit in the next few weeks. After that, we've got
It's almost
Revolution.
like there's lots of stuff happening.
I know, and
we should say, I don't know how much we're going to do, but coming up on WrestleMania weekend, there's Unbreakable, there's Stand and Deliver, there's the Go Home SmackDown, there's 2 nights of WrestleMania, and there's the Monday after WrestleMania. So in that sort of 6-day period, you're gonna get some. You're gonna get some of us. It also falls on Easter weekend this year, so you might not have us every single night. But
I'll
you're
be
going to hear
live
us a
for
lot.
the Mania review, surely, but Stand and Deliver I really want to be live for, so we should be, but we'll see what happens. We've got time for that to happen. That's not till April 19th, but before then, like we said, we've got Revolution, and then we've got Roadblock as well for NXT, so going to be a very busy
and we got
next few
Sacrifice
weeks.
coming up as well.
Yeah, that's right as too.
With a lot of NXT people on it.
Absolutely. So we
gonna
were
be
talking about
good.
Sacrifice earlier. It's going to be a great show.
And you guys know where to find me, or you wouldn't be here. I've been Spaz. This has been Super Sexy Jake. This has been all the NXT news that's fit to print. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, we are tagging out. Bye, guys.
The Chamber's in the Dome.